Parents, does this sound familiar?
Children often say to their parents, "Why should I do that?" after the parents have given a command. There's way more to be said to a child about obedience than just "because I said so." Well, what more would one add? Well, let's see what the Lord has added. Children, obey your parents. Here's an addition. In the Lord. That's a huge addition.
We thank the good Lord for this time together with you as we open the Scriptures to uncover family God's way. This is Living in Christ, and Pastor Bob Hoekstra will join us shortly. Here in Part 5 of the series, we're addressing the parent-child relationship. In Ephesians 6, children are instructed to obey their parents in the Lord. And God follows that up by saying, "For this is right." This has so much to convey to children and parents, and today Pastor Bob highlights this beautiful verse for us.
The way God raises His kids, us, His children, is really a picture of how He wants to use us in the rearing of our children. And special joy in my heart thinking about children here in today's study. The Lord blessed us with 3 children, and they do have, all 3 of them, a great love for the Lord, a great desire to please and serve the Lord, and a strong heart inclination to have the Lord's presence in their home, the primary characteristic of their households. And they are now raising their children. And in fact, our oldest grandchild is pressing very close toward the 20 mark now. And praise be to the Lord, yesterday afternoon, actually, the Lord added a 12th grandchild to our family for my wife and I. So we are bubbling over with joy on that. And it's kind of a humorous story, you know. My dear wife, she loves babies. I love babies. She triple loves babies. and she loves grandbabies. And early on she announced to the family way back that it was on her heart that God might give us 10 grandchildren. And we started praying about that. And our kids would hear us talking about that. And, you know, the older they got, the more interested they were in that dynamic, especially when they're learning math. You know, let's see, 10 grandchildren, or 3 of us, 3 children. This average is at least 3 children plus, you know. And they kind of had jokes about, you know, to each other, to their siblings, "Are you going to have 6 or 7? You know, thinking, how is mom going to meet this? And God has super abundantly. He's answered that prayer exceeding abundantly beyond what we could ask or think. Our daughter has 3 children. Our youngest son has 4 children. Our oldest son, they just had their 5th child birth yesterday. And they've been praying since they were married for 6. So, God, we're open. What a blessing. What a treasure children are. Oh, how we need to point them to the Lord as we raise them up. It's always been God's plan. It's always been His way. But you look around at what's happening to the world and the deterioration as the human family, you know, presses into thousands of years of sinful history, and then pressing toward the culmination of all of the last day events and all of that. Oh, how we need the Lord in the midst of all this. And see, that's exactly where it starts. Children, obey your parents in the Lord. In the Lord. It's part of the child's accountability and responsibility before the Lord. It's not just children obey your parents. I mean, that's a valid truth, and even those out in the world are wise to teach their children the issues of obedience. But what God is calling us to is way bigger than that. It's children, obey your parents in the Lord. It's a part of a child's spiritual responsibility, spiritual perspective, spiritual accountability, to be learning to obey their parents. It's not just an issue between parent and child. It's also an issue between parents and the Lord and the children and the Lord. Children, obey your parents in the Lord. What is kind of the typical approach to obedience? I've seen it in many parts of the world in traveling and teaching. Children often say to their parents, "Why should I do that?" after the parents have given a command. And it's been almost humorous in settings like over in Millstatt at the conference center, the castle in Austria, where multicultural conferences go on. They come from all over Western Europe, sometimes Eastern Europe, sometimes both. And one day I was teaching on this and sort of asked them what their response was when their children say, "Why should I do that?" And it was astounding. Nation after nation, Hungary, Romania, on and on and on, Germany, France. At the missions conference, I'm thinking particularly, they're from all over Europe and beyond. And it was almost unanimous in everyone who responded. Their response was, "Because I said so." Instruction to the children. Children's response, "Why? Why should I do that?" And the parents, in fact, we had them all say it in their own language. It was quite beautiful. "Because I said so." Now, in one sense, that is biblically acceptable thinking. But it is absolutely not biblically exhaustive thinking. There's way more to be said to a child about obedience than just "because I said so." Well, what more would one add? Well, let's see what the Lord has added. Children, obey your parents. Here's an addition. In the Lord. That's a huge addition. To teach that truth to children. Kids, God is involved in our family relationships, and He's looking on and interested and wants to have an impact on our relationship as parent and child. And in this verse, as your responsibility of obedience in the Lord. Boy, in the Lord. When you add the Lord into human relationships, there is the potential for everything to be made new or being made new. Yeah, kids have a sense of respect and fear for their parents when they're little. I mean, hopefully not fear and dread or terror, but a respect. I know I had a fear of my father. I was never afraid of him in that sense of the word. He was a kind and a good man, Chaplain Ray was, and I have great memories of him from smallest childhood up until I was a grandfather and he was a great-grandfather. But I did respect him. And I respected his walk with the Lord, even in those rebellious years where I was indulging myself and not pursuing after the Lord. But to bring the Lord into this situation, it's not just mom and dad and the kids. It's mom and dad and the kids with the Lord present in all that's going on. And children, Obey your parents in the Lord. In the Lord. And then another issue is added. For this is right. For this is right. In other words, this is a matter of righteousness. Children obeying parents is not just a cultural, traditional issue, though that appears more or less in cultures as well. But it's not a mere tradition issue. It's not an adult domination issue. It's not a sociological development issue. Here's the best result from our trial and error. Looks like it's best if kids obey their parents. Not that at all. It is something that is divinely correct. It's right. In fact, I think a great biblical word to use on this truth, it's a matter of righteousness.
That's a good way to put it. It's a matter of righteousness. You've been listening to Bob Hoekstra and a part of his 6-part series, Family God's Way. This is Living in Christ. Today we were only able to present a small portion of the message. However, we do offer the study in its entirety on CD for a suggested donation of $5. Call us at 877-600-LICM. Again, 877-600-5426. Or if you'd like to order the complete series, Family God's Way, we'd be happy to get that out to you as well. We'll send you the entire 6-part series on CD, DVD, or even Blu-ray, whatever you'd prefer. Again, phone us at 877-600-LICM. Or for instant access, download the audio files from our website. Look for our media library at livinginchrist.org. Again, we're at livinginchrist.org. You know, whenever we air this series, we're reminded of just how many people are struggling in their family life and in need of God's truth. If you'd like someone to pray for you and your family, please don't hesitate to call 877-600-LICM or write to Living in Christ, P.O. Box 2848, Costa Mesa, California, 92628. You can also email us through the website at livinginchrist.org. Living in Christ is brought to you by Living in Christ Ministries. We'll continue to outline what Family God's Way looks like next time we get together.